You won't believe what happened on The Tonight Show. Gwen Stefani, one of the biggest pop stars in the world, is allegedly kicked off Jimmy Fallon's stage after a heated backstage confrontation. The cameras kept rolling. The audience laughed. But what they didn't see will shock you. Secrets, tension, and drama erupted behind the scenes, and no one is talking about it. This is the story everyone is trying to hide. Asterisk, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Soyo. Never miss an update. Now let's dive into what really happened. Asterisk, no one saw this coming. What was meant to be a cheerful, lighthearted appearance on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy, Fallon quietly turned into one of the most whispered-about moments in late-night television. On the surface, everything looked perfect. The studio lights were bright. The band played Gwen Stefani's music as she walked out to thunderous applause. Jimmy Fallon stood, smiling, arms open, welcoming one of pop music's most recognizable stars. Gwen looked confident, stylish, completely in control. Exactly how fans have known her for decades. This was supposed to be a celebration, Gwen. Stefani wasn't just another guest. She's a global pop icon, a fashion trendsetter, and a familiar face on television after years as a coach on The Voice. She had a new project to promote, stories to tell, and fans eager to hear from her. From the outside, this appearance looked like a guaranteed hit. Fun clips, viral laughs, and mutual respect between two entertainment heavyweights. But something wasn't right. As the interview began, smiles felt slightly rehearsed. The laughter didn't fully reach Gwen's eyes. And while the audience at home couldn't pinpoint it immediately, there was an invisible tension hovering in the room. Subtle, quiet, but unmistakably present. Late-night interviews move fast. Jokes fly. Stories overlap. And guests are often expected to play along no matter what. But insiders now claim that behind the scenes, Gwen Stefani was already feeling uneasy about how the conversation was unfolding. Viewers had no clue. From their screens, it looked like business as usual. Jimmy Fallon cracked jokes. Gwen responded politely. The band reacted. The audience laughed on cue. But behind the polished television magic, something far more complicated was happening. Something that would later spark rumors, speculation, and intense online debate, according to multiple sources. Certain topics raised during the interview were unexpected. Some questions touched on sensitive areas of Gwen's career and personal life, things she hadn't planned to discuss that night. While she remained professional on camera, the mood subtly shifted. Her body language changed. Her answers grew more careful. Her energy, once relaxed, became guarded. And that's when whispers began to circulate backstage. By the time the interview reached its midpoint, production staff reportedly sensed the tension. Commercial breaks became moments of quiet conversations. Producers exchanged looks. And somewhere between the laughter and the applause, a situation was quietly forming, one that no one in the audience could see. What happened next didn't unfold under bright studio lights. It happened away from the stage cameras. Insiders now claim that what began as a routine guest appearance ended with Gwen Stefani being asked to leave the show earlier than planned. Following a heated behind-the-scenes clash with Jimmy Fallon himself, a moment so unexpected that it left staff stunned and fans confused once the episode aired. There was no dramatic walk-off, no shouting caught on tape, no public meltdown, just silence. Segments that were expected never aired. The interview felt shorter than usual, and once the episode ended, questions started flooding social media. Why did it feel rushed? Why did Gwen seem uncomfortable? Why were certain moments missing? Suddenly, a normal late-night appearance became a mystery. So what really happened that night? What was said when the cameras stopped rolling? And how did a routine interview spiral into controversy that neither side has officially addressed? To understand that, we need to look closer at the interview itself, and the moment everything began to fall apart. Asterisk, asterisk. At first, everything followed the familiar Tonight Show rhythm. Jimmy Fallon opened with warm praise, calling Gwen Stefani a living legend and joking about how her music defined an entire generation. Gwen smiled, laughed politely, and thanked the audience. For the first few minutes, it felt exactly like fans expected, safe, upbeat, and nostalgic. But then, the tone began to shift. Jimmy transitioned from talking about Gwen's current project to revisiting moments from her past, old headlines, past relationships, and controversial phases of her career that Gwen has largely moved on from. While none of the questions were openly hostile, outsiders claim they weren't part of the originally agreed discussion at first. Gwen played along. She answered carefully, choosing her words with precision. But viewers with a sharp eye could notice subtle changes. Her laughter came a second too late. Her smile didn't linger. And when Fallon exaggerated certain stories for comedic effect, Gwen gently corrected him, something guests rarely do on live television. The audience laughed. Gwen didn't. As Fallon continued, the jokes became sharper, leaning more toward viral humor than respectful reflection. Some comments hinted at internet rumors and old tabloid narratives, the kind that may get clicks online but reopen chapters. Artists would rather leave closed. Gwen's posture changed. She leaned back slightly, crossing her arms at moments. Her responses grew shorter. The energy between host and guest, once friendly, now felt cautious, almost strained. Then came the first commercial break. According to people close to the production, Gwen used that moment to quietly express her discomfort. She reportedly asked producers to steer the interview back toward her current work and away from topics she felt were unnecessary and misleading. Producers listened, but when the show returned from break, viewers noticed something strange. The conversation didn't change. Jimmy Fallon continued down the same path, adding jokes and playful jabs that, while typical for late-night TV, seemed to push Gwen further out of her comfort zone. At one point, she paused before answering a brief silence that felt much louder than any joke. That pause mattered. It signaled that this was no longer just an interview. It was becoming a test of boundaries. Behind the scenes, tension began to rise. Staff members later described a noticeable shift in the studio's atmosphere. The band reacted more cautiously. Producers watched closely. And Gwen's once easy chemistry with Fallon was visibly fading. To viewers at home, it still looked fine. But those inside the studio knew something was wrong. Another break arrived, and this time, the mood reportedly turned serious. Gwen Stefani was no longer smiling. Her frustration wasn't dramatic, but it was clear. She felt unheard. She felt cornered. And most of all, she felt that the interview was becoming something she never agreed to. This was the moment where a routine segment crossed into uncomfortable territory. Jimmy Fallon, known for his playful style, reportedly believed the interview was still within acceptable bounds. From his perspective, this was how late-night TV worked. Humor first, sensitivity second. But Gwen didn't see it that way. What began as minor discomfort was now heading toward a full confrontation, one that would not happen under studio lights. But behind closed doors, and as the cameras prepared to roll again, no one could predict that this interview was already past the point of no return. Asterisk, asterisk. What the audience never saw was where everything finally exploded. The real confrontation didn't happen in front of millions of viewers. It didn't happen under bright studio lights or during a viral soundbite. It happened off camera, in the quiet moments when the show cut to commercials and the laughter faded, according to multiple insiders. The second major break marked a turning point. Gwen Stefani reportedly stepped away from the stage and headed backstage. Visibly upset, but composed. This wasn't a dramatic meltdown. There were no thrown objects or shouted insults, just a calm but unmistakably serious energy. Staff members who crossed her path sensed immediately that something was wrong. Moments later, Jimmy Fallon joined her. What followed was described as a tense and emotionally charged exchange. Gwen reportedly expressed that she felt blindsided. She explained that several topics brought up during the interview were never cleared beforehand, and that some jokes felt less like humor and more like personal digs. She emphasized that she had agreed to a fun, promotional appearance, not a revisit of old controversies. At first, Fallon was said to be surprised. He reportedly responded that the questions were standard late-night material, meant to be lighthearted and entertaining. From his perspective, nothing crossed the line. This was how the show had always operated, and most guests understood that. But Gwen wasn't convinced. Witnesses claim her frustration grew as she explained how carefully she had worked to control her public narrative in recent years. Being pushed into uncomfortable territory, especially without warning, felt disrespectful. She wasn't angry for attention. She was standing her ground. Producers quickly stepped in as voices grew firmer and the mood tightened. Senior staff members attempted to calm the situation. Time was running out. The show had to continue. Cameras were preparing to roll again, but the chemistry between host and guest was already broken. And then came the decision. Rather than force the interview forward and risk an on-air breakdown, producers made a quiet call. Planned segments, including a lighthearted game and a follow-up discussion, were suddenly scrapped. Gwen Stefani was reportedly asked to leave the studio early, officially. It was framed as a scheduling adjustment, unofficially. Many staff members believed it was the only way to prevent the situation from escalating further. Gwen left without creating a scene. No public argument. No slam doors. No viral clip, just a controlled exit and a lot of unanswered questions. Back on stage, Fallon returned to his seat and continued the show. To the audience, it felt slightly off. The energy had shifted. The pacing was faster. Something was missing, even if viewers couldn't explain what. Behind the scenes, staff members were stunned. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Gwen Stefani is a seasoned professional. Jimmy Fallon is a veteran host. Situations like this rarely reach such a breaking point, especially without any public acknowledgement. But once the cameras stopped rolling for the night, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a clash of expectations, boundaries, and control. And while the audience only saw a shortened interview, the real drama had already happened, quietly, decisively, and completely out of sight. The fallout was only just beginning. Asterisk, asterisk. Sometimes. What people don't say creates more noise than any headline. When the episode of The Tonight Show finally aired, many viewers immediately sensed that something felt off. The interview with Gwen Stefani was noticeably shorter than usual. The pacing felt rushed. Familiar segments that fans expected never appeared, and most importantly, the energy was different. Social media reacted almost instantly. Fans began posting clips, screenshots, and theories. Some noticed Gwen's guarded body language. Others pointed out awkward pauses and moments where the laughter felt forced. A few sharp-eyed viewers even counted missing minutes from the segment lineup. Questions started flooding in. Why did the interview end so quickly? Why didn't they play a game? Why did Gwen look uncomfortable? Within hours, the rumors exploded. Anonymous sources began leaking claims to entertainment blogs, suggesting that Gwen Stefani had been asked to leave the studio early after a backstage confrontation. The phrase kicked off spread fast, dramatic, shocking, and impossible to ignore. But here's what made the story even bigger. Neither Gwen, Stefani, nor Jimmy Fallon said a word. No tweet. No Instagram post. No public clarification. The silence from both sides only added fuel to the fire. Fans were divided. Some defended Gwen, arguing that celebrities shouldn't be ambushed with uncomfortable questions just to create viral moments. Others defended Fallon, saying that late-night hosts are paid to push boundaries and keep things. Entertaining industry insiders weighed in quietly. Some claimed this was a rare miscalculation by Fallon's team, pushing humor too far without checking emotional limits. Others suggested Gwen may have underestimated the unpredictable nature of late-night television. But no matter which side people took, one thing was undeniable. This incident felt different. Late-night TV has seen awkward interviews before, but this one carried an unusual tension, one that wasn't smoothed over with jokes or follow-up appearances. Gwen never returned to the show. Fallon never referenced the moment again, and that absence spoke volumes. Clips from the interview continued circulating, the comment sections filled with speculation. Viewers replayed moments, searching for hidden signs. Every pause, every expression, every unfinished laugh became evidence in a mystery that refused to fade. Without an official explanation, the story took on a life of its own. Was Gwen protecting her boundaries? Was Fallon caught off guard by her reaction? Or was this simply a quiet collision between two powerful personalities? Whatever the truth, the silence ensured one thing. This wasn't going away. Because when millions of people feel something isn't being explained, they don't move on, they dig deeper, and the deeper they dug, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about one interview, it was about control, respect, and the invisible rules of television rules that may have finally been challenged. This wasn't just another awkward late-night interview. What happened between Gwen Stefani and Jimmy Fallon revealed something much bigger than a single TV moment. It exposed the quiet tension that exists behind entertainment, the constant push between viral content and personal boundaries. Late-night television thrives on humor, surprise, and unpredictability. Hosts are encouraged to push conversations into unexpected places, hoping for clips that explode online. But guests, even famous ones, are still people with limits, histories, and lines they don't want crossed. Gwen Stefani has spent decades in the spotlight. She's navigated fame, controversy, reinvention, and intense public scrutiny. For someone at her level, to feel uncomfortable enough to walk away from a major platform sends a clear message. Experience doesn't make you immune to feeling disrespected. At the same time, this moment also challenged the public image of Jimmy Fallon. Known for his friendly, playful style, Fallon has built his brand on making guests feel welcome. But this incident suggests that even well-intentioned humor can miss the mark, especially when personal topics are involved. Sometimes, the joke meant to entertain millions can land very differently on the person sitting across the desk. And that's why this moment matters. It forces a question. Audiences rarely ask, where is the line between entertainment and exploitation? The cameras may stop rolling, but the impact doesn't. A single interview can reshape public perception, strain professional relationships, and spark conversations that go far beyond one night of television. The fact that neither Gwen nor Fallon has publicly addressed the incident makes it even more powerful. Their silence allows viewers to interpret the moment for themselves, and in doing so, it turns the audience into part of the story. Some see Gwen as strong for standing her ground. Others see Fallon as doing his job in a tough industry. But maybe the truth sits somewhere in between. This wasn't about villains or heroes. It was about a system that rewards shock, speed, and spectacle, sometimes at the cost of understanding. And maybe that's why this moment still lingers, because it reminds us that not every smile on television is real. Not every laugh means comfort, and not every moment of drama happens on camera. Sometimes, the most important stories are the ones we're never meant to see.